Amal stood at the edge of the observation deck, the blackness of space stretching endlessly before him. The docking lights of the human vessel glimmered faintly in the distance, reflecting off the visor of his helmet. He had spent his life orbiting planets, charting the subtle rhythms of stars. Yet nothing in his existence had prepared him for this moment. Humanity was leaving the galactic concord, and with it, everything he thought he knew about balance and diplomacy. He felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Celine, her fingers light but grounding, her touch steadying the whirlwind of doubt in his chest. She had always been unflinching, the kind of person who could walk across a fragile bridge of light between worlds without hesitation. And yet now, standing here as the first human ship disengaged from Concord space, her usually confident expression was etched with tension. "They'll notice soon," Amal said, not looking at her. His voice was low, almost lost in the hum of the station's life support systems. Celine nodded. "They'll wonder why we're gone, and then they'll panic." Panic. The word hung between them like a specter. It was almost poetic, in a cruel sense. For centuries, the elder races had ruled with calculated certainty. They had expected obedience, compliance, the small species waiting quietly in their place. And now, humanity had made the choice to step away, to claim their freedom openly. "Do you think they'll retaliate?" Amal asked, finally turning to meet her gaze. She smiled, a small, bittersweet curl of her lips. "I think they'll realize something they never expected. That maybe strength isn't about fear." His chest tightened at the words, not because they were false, but because they carried the weight of the unknown. He had trained for missions, for exploration, for negotiation. He had studied alien fleets and trade routes, decoded obscure languages, even survived a skirmish in the Outer Rim. But he had never prepared for a world that might shift beneath him in an instant, where alliances could collapse before a single weapon was fired. "Amal." Celine's voice softened. "Come with me." She led him to a private chamber overlooking the station's docking bay. Through the transparent walls, he could see the sleek curvature of the human vessel, engines thrumming softly, ready to breach the gap between Concord-controlled space and the uncharted sectors beyond. She touched his hand, warm through the thin glove of his suit. "I can't do this alone," she admitted, her voice trembling just slightly. "Not the first time we've faced something impossible, but maybe the first time that leaving is the only choice." Amal's heart ached. The bond between them had grown quietly over years of shared missions and long nights of data analysis, but he had never allowed himself to name it, not fully. And now, in this charged moment of departure and defiance, he realized that love was just as terrifying as the unknown. "Then we face it together," he said finally, gripping her hand. The warmth of her fingers through his was grounding. Even if the galaxy fractured, even if the Concord's ancient powers quaked in their absence, they would face it as one. Outside, the vessel's engines flared softly, a pulse of human ingenuity and daring. It slowly disengaged from the station, drifting toward the void where no treaty, no council, no elder race could dictate its path. As the ship moved farther away, the observation deck shivered with subtle vibrations. The ancient structures of the Concord station seemed to hold their breath. The galaxy itself paused, sensing the ripple of change. And in that moment, Amal found himself captivated by Celine's quiet courage, by the certainty in her gaze, and by the strange, exhilarating terror of a future that belonged only to those willing to step into the unknown. "It's beginning," he whispered. She nodded, and for the first time, he allowed himself to hope that somewhere, amid the collapse of centuries of authority, they might not only survive, but also find a way to build something entirely new together, outside. The stars stretched infinitely, and humanity, with all its fragile courage, moved boldly forward. Ariane drifted through the narrow corridors of the observation cruiser, her boots silent against the alloy floor. She was not part of the human ship that had vanished from the Concorde, yet the echoes of their departure reached her even here, in a sector long thought empty. Whispers traveled faster than light through corridors and comms rumors of humanity, stepping beyond the rules, beyond control. And Ariane, a translator and liaison by duty but a dreamer at heart, found herself caught in the pull of something far greater than orders or protocol. "They're already here," a voice crackled in her earpiece. It was Cito, her partner in the fleet, whose sharp instincts had kept them alive on countless negotiations with the elder races. "We don't know why, but sensors are picking up signatures. Ships moving in ways unprecedented." Ariane's pulse quickened. "Signatures like freedom," Cito answered simply. "Like a species that decided it didn't care about the galaxy's rules anymore." The words hung between them, surreal and impossible. She moved to the observation deck, gazing at the dark expanse beyond the cruiser's hull. Distant stars twinkled, cold and indifferent. And yet, somewhere among them, humanity was weaving a path no one had predicted. She felt a hand on her shoulder, Cito's, grounding, familiar. The same hand that had steadied her through tense negotiations and close calls. "You're thinking too much," he murmured. "Sometimes you just have to watch and feel what's happening." Ariane turned to face him, a mixture of fear and awe in her eyes. "I've never seen courage like this. To leave everything known. It's reckless or brilliant," he said. And there was a softness in his voice that wasn't part of his usual measured tone. The kind of softness reserved for moments when words weren't enough to carry the truth. "And maybe we're just realizing how much we've underestimated it." She swallowed, her gaze returning to the void. Her heart ached with longing, not only for the distant humans and their daring, but for the closeness she felt to Cito, for the warmth of his presence against the cold of space. She had always thought the galaxy was infinite and lonely. Now, she wondered if it had simply been waiting for something or someone to break the silence. "They're moving into uncharted sectors," Cito said, scanning the holomap hovering in front of them. "No maps, no rules. No one expects them there. It's beautiful." Ariane smiled faintly. "You sound like you want to join them." "Maybe I do," he admitted. "But right now we watch, and we learn, and we hope that they survive what comes next." Her chest tightened. Hope. It was a dangerous thing in a galaxy that traded in certainty and strategy. Yet she felt it, stubborn and bright, growing within her. She stepped closer to Cito, letting their hands brush, letting the warmth anchor her. "Then let's hope together," she whispered. And in that moment, amid the silence of space and the distant pulse of engines unseen, a bond deepened between them, quiet, unspoken, yet undeniable. Beyond the observation deck, a fleet moved like shadows across the stars, following the trail of humanity's audacious leap. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath, aware that something ancient and unyielding had been challenged, and that the echo of courage, of love, of defiance, would ripple farther than anyone had anticipated. And Ariane, caught between duty and desire, realized that sometimes the most revolutionary acts weren't battles or treaties. They were the choices to trust, to hope, and to follow the heart, even when the path was uncertain. Silas had never been drawn to heroism. As a scout mapping the border worlds, he had learned that survival often meant silence, observation, and discretion. Yet the news that came across the comm channels that morning made him question everything he thought he knew. Humans long absent from galactic politics were advancing where none dared. Uncharted sectors, impossible coordinates, ships appearing as if born from nothing. He adjusted his visor and studied the holographic map floating before him. The human trajectories seemed erratic at first glance, yet a pattern emerged, a kind of chaos that felt purposeful, almost intimate. Silas felt a stirring he hadn't anticipated, awe, fascination, a peculiar hope. "You're staring like a child," came the voice of Mara, the fleet's communications officer. She leaned over his shoulder, dark eyes reflecting the pale glow of the map. "What is it this time?" "Look at this," Silas said. "Their paths. It's like they're testing the universe itself. No fleet has ever moved like this before." Mara's gaze softened, and for a moment, the tension of their shared responsibilities melted into something quieter, warmer. "Humans," she murmured. "Dangerous, beautiful, reckless." He turned to her, surprised by how much weight her words carried. "I've studied fleets, strategies, even the philosophers who ponder galactic expansion," Silas said. "But none of it prepares you for this." She chuckled softly, and the sound was a balm to his racing thoughts. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe doesn't want to be prepared for everything. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same data pad, and Silas froze, aware of the electric tension between them. Mara looked up, her eyes meeting his, and the unspoken acknowledgement passed between them, fear, admiration, and an attraction that had been simmering beneath professionalism. "We should report," Silas said finally, though neither of them moved immediately. But we'll stay a moment longer," Mara finished for him. And so they did, watching the holographic representation of humanity's fleet weave through the void. A dance that defied expectation, a statement written in light years and boldness. Hours passed like minutes. The quiet hum of the ship surrounded them, cocooning them in a world apart from protocols and politics. Silas found himself sharing thoughts he never had, visions of galaxies untamed, possibilities unbounded, and the strange intimacy of moments stolen from duty. Mara's hand lingered near his, a subtle gesture that conveyed more than words. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, voice barely above a whisper, "what it would be like to follow them, to leave behind the maps, the orders, the known?" He swallowed, a smile tugging at his lips. "Every day," he admitted. "And yet, I think I've found something almost as important right here." Their eyes met, and in that glance was the acknowledgement of connection, fragile yet undeniable. In a galaxy defined by distance and danger, they had found a kind of gravity in each other, a tether that felt as audacious as the humans they observed. Beyond the observation port, the void stretched infinitely, but for Silas and Mara, the unknown was no longer a threat. It was an invitation to hope, to follow, and perhaps to love amidst the stars. As the distant glow of humanity's fleet pulsed against the darkness, Silas realized that some journeys were measured not in light years, but in the courage to reach out and hold another's hand. Arya had spent years navigating the silent stretches of space, decoding faint signals and relic transmissions left by civilizations long vanished. To her, the void was a confidant, an endless expanse where secrets traveled faster than light, and truths were whispered between stars. Yet nothing in her studies prepared her for the signal that appeared one quiet cycle, a human frequency, clear, deliberate, almost intimate. She traced the source to a derelict research station on the edge of the Uranith sector. The station had been abandoned for decades, left to drift like a ghost tethered to the void. Arya docked her ship and moved inside, her footsteps echoing across empty corridors. The air was thick with dust and the faint hum of long-forgotten machinery. Then she saw him. He was hunched over a console, silver hair falling into eyes that still held a sharpness and curiosity no centuries of isolation could dull. "I didn't think anyone would find me here," he said without turning. His voice carried both weariness and something warmer, a quiet longing. Arya's heart skipped. I traced the signal," she said. "Why broadcast it if you didn't want contact?" He finally looked up, and their eyes met a collision of solitude and recognition. "Because even in silence, hope finds a way to speak." She moved closer, studying the intricate patterns of human logic etched into the ancient station systems. "You've kept this place alive," she observed, impressed. "Why?" "Someone once told me," he replied, "that the universe remembers those who care for it, even when it seems indifferent." His gaze lingered on her, and for the first time in years, Arya felt the tight coil of loneliness in her chest loosen. They spent cycles together, repairing systems, sharing stories of the galaxies they had known, and slowly, the station became a sanctuary for connection. He taught her the subtleties of human ingenuity, how even the smallest actions could ripple across space. She taught him to listen to the void in ways he had never imagined, to hear the quiet laughter of stars. One evening, as the twin suns of a distant system bathed the station in amber light, he reached for her hand. It was tentative, respectful, and electric. "Arya, I've been waiting for someone to understand all of this," he said, gesturing to the station. "The stars, the silence. To understand me." She squeezed his hand, warmth blooming between them. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. "And perhaps you never were." Outside, a human fleet moved across the sector, subtle yet unmistakable, a silent signature of a civilization that refused to remain hidden. But inside the station, the only signals that mattered were the ones flowing between two hearts, long dormant, now awakening. And in that quiet, fragile space, Arya realized that love like light itself could traverse even the most infinite voids. The galaxy had grown quiet once more, but not empty. The echoes of countless encounters, losses, and fragile alliances resonated across star systems like the soft afterglow of a supernova. Each thread the alien fleets, the lone survivors, the hidden stations. The whispered signals was converging, drawn by forces both human and beyond. Arya and the silver-haired engineer watched from their restored station as a faint shimmer in space marked the approach of vessels human and alien alike. It wasn't a battle fleet this time. It was something else, a gathering. Curiosity mingled with apprehension as the first ships docked near the station. And then they came, the travelers from the previous sectors, those whose stories had brushed against hers in fleeting moments, each carrying experiences, wounds, and hopes of connection. He took her hand, a steady anchor in the swirl of anticipation. "We've all waited for this moment," he murmured, "for the galaxy to remember that we're more than signals and shadows." As the groups converged, they shared what they had learned. Alliances formed in silence, understanding nurtured in isolation, and love discovered in the smallest gestures repairs. Laughter, kindness, a shared cup of water on a distant moon. The aliens who had once mocked, hunted, or ignored humanity now saw them differently, not as conquerors, not as fragile mortals, but as beings capable of shaping the currents of the universe through ingenuity and compassion. Arya's heart swelled as she observed a human child laughing while playing with an alien companion, their joy bridging languages, species, and centuries of separation. In that laughter, the station, once a relic of solitude, became a beacon. The void itself seemed to hum, acknowledging that the smallest connections could ripple across galaxies. He turned to her, eyes reflecting starlight. "We came here alone," he said softly, "but we are never truly alone." She smiled, leaning into him. "The stars remembered our names," she said, "and now, so will we." In the days that followed, the once abandoned station became a nexus of understanding. Human and alien engineers worked side by side. Diplomats traded stories instead of threats, and love quiet, persistent, and defiant wove itself into the fabric of the galaxy dot. And as Arya and the engineer stood together, watching the twin suns rise over distant worlds, they understood a profound truth. The universe was vast, unyielding, and often silent, yet even in that silence, hearts could find one another, and in finding, could illuminate everything around them. The galaxy, once indifferent, had learned to listen, and humanity through patience, ingenuity, and love had reminded it what it meant to care. Their hands intertwined. The stars overhead seemed to pulse in quiet applause, a cosmic recognition that even in the endless void, connection endured, and love would always find a way.